It was my sister Jessica's Harvard graduation day, the kind of bright, impossibly perfect June afternoon that makes you squint. But for me, Mike, the glare wasn't just from the sun bouncing off ancient brick buildings. It was from the calculated chills irradiating from my own parents, Linda and Robert. Right there, amidst the cheerful chaos of caps, gowns, and proud relatives, they orchestrated my public erasure, disowned, not with a shout, but with the precision of a surgeon removing an unwanted growth. No pre-warning, no awkward family meeting, just a dazzling smile reserved exclusively for Jessica, their star, and a void where their son used to be. They'd meticulously scrubbed my name from the invitation list, snipped it from the program. What they didn't know, what they couldn't possibly fathom, was that I wasn't arriving empty-handed. I carried the quiet weight of their secrets, the siphoned inheritance, the forged signatures, the family property sold off in hushed backroom deals. They thought they were exposing my inadequacy. In reality, I was the one holding the backstage pass to their meticulously crafted facade. Before I pull back that curtain fully, tell me, where are you tuning in from, and what time is it on your side of the world? Drop it in the comments below. I genuinely read every single one. I showed up deliberately early that day. Not out of enthusiasm, but out of a morbid curiosity mixed with a stubborn refusal to be completely vanished without witnessing the act myself. Harvard Yard was already a sea of celebratory energy, the air thick with anticipation and the scent of expensive floral arrangements. Students swirled in their black robes, parents clutched cameras and gift bags, their faces beaming. My own parents, Linda and Robert, were already positioned near the cordoned-off, reserved seating area, holding court. Mom, Linda, was crisp and impeccable in a pale blue suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent, her smile tight and socially perfect. Dad, Robert, sport coat already draped over his arm despite the early hour, was engrossed in his phone, tapping his foot with that familiar impatience, like the whole prestigious event was merely an inconvenient delay in his schedule. Jessica, flanked protectively between them, looked every bit the Ivy League ideal, radiant in her gown, adorned with honors cords, a living embodiment of their ambitions realized. They didn't notice me immediately, too busy accepting congratulations from passing acquaintances. When Linda's gaze finally swept over me, it was with a flicker of carefully cultivated surprise, the kind you might give a distant cousin who unexpectedly crashed a wedding. "Oh, Mike," she said, her voice smooth, lacking any genuine warmth. "You actually decided to come." The unspoken "despite everything" hung heavy in the air. "Well, I received an invitation," I clipped back, trying to keep the bitterness from my tone. It was a lie, technically. Aunt Brenda had forwarded me the digital copy after realizing I'd been left off the official mailing list. Linda let out a faint, dismissive chuckle. That must have been a forwarded copy someone sent along. I wasn't entirely certain the official RSVP list reached quite that broadly. The subtle insult landed precisely as intended. Dad offered a curt nod in my general direction before pointedly checking his expensive Swiss watch again. Jessica stepped forward, offering a quick, almost obligatory hug. I leaned into it, mostly out of muscle memory. "You look fantastic, Jess," I murmured. And I meant it. The academic achievement was hers, regardless of the family drama swirling around it. "Thanks, Mike." she replied softly, her voice barely above a whisper, her eyes instinctively flicking towards Linda, gauging permission. "I'm really glad you could make it." But the sentiment felt diluted, strained by the invisible wall our parents had constructed between us. I walked over to the large seating chart displayed on an ornate wooden easel near the main archway. Bold calligraphy announced the Miller family. Beneath it, the names: Robert, Linda, Jessica, plus 2 designated guests, Jessica's roommate and Aunt Miriam. I scanned the list twice, then a third time, searching for Mike Miller. Nothing. Not even tucked away at the bottom. Vanished. A volunteer handed me a name badge as I neared the seating area. Plain white cardstock, no embossed family crest like the thick cream-colored badges the others wore. No small crimson ribbon indicating close family, just the stark, impersonal word guest, printed in Standard Times New Roman font. I stood there for a long moment, maybe 2 full minutes, just staring at that badge. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd helped Mom choose the typeface for the original family crest design nearly 2 decades ago, arguing over serifs and spacing for an entire weekend. Logically, I should have turned around right then, walked away with whatever shred of dignity I had left. But some stubborn, perhaps foolish, part of me refused. I clipped the generic guest badge onto the lapel of my blazer and walked towards the designated seating tent, the fabric feeling suddenly cheap against my skin. A ghost attending his own social funeral. The ceremony began precisely at 11:03 a.m. Pomp and circumstance filled the air. Speeches were given by deans and dignitaries, filled with platitudes about futures and legacies. I found a seat alone in the far left section, unintentionally wedged between a sleeping elderly man and a young child scribbling on her program with a purple crayon. Then my father, Robert Miller, approached the podium. He adjusted his tie, cleared his throat, and activated that polished boardroom smile. "Today," he began, his voice resonating smoothly through the sound system, "we celebrate the extraordinary brilliance and unwavering dedication of our eldest daughter, Jessica. Her journey to this pinnacle of achievement has been nothing short of remarkable." Polite applause rippled through the crowd. Cameras clicked. Jessica modestly lowered her gaze. He paused, letting the moment hang, then continued, his tone shifting slightly, becoming graver. "This day also represents a significant turning point for our family," he declared. "A necessary realignment of our energy, our values, and our focus moving forward. A reaffirmation of the standards we uphold." My stomach clenched. I knew instinctively what was coming. "We have reached a difficult, yet ultimately necessary, decision," he announced, his gaze sweeping across the audience, deliberately avoiding the section where I sat. "From this point onward, we will no longer be extending our family resources, support, or public association to those individuals who do not consistently align with the core integrity and future vision we have established for the Miller name." He let the words sink in. "And that, unfortunately, includes our youngest son, Mike." Absolute silence descended. Not a gasp, not a murmur, just the suffocating weight of hundreds of people suddenly unsure where to look. A few coughs broke the tension. I didn't flinch. I didn't stand up. I didn't cry. I simply sat there, my hands resting loosely on my knees, suddenly aware of the rough texture of my trousers, the slight buzz of the speaker system, the way the sunlight felt too warm on the back of my neck. My ears filled with a low hum. I kept my gaze fixed on the edge of the stage, focusing on a loose thread on the crimson bunting. Jessica remained perfectly still, eyes forward, expression neutral. She didn't look my way, not once. From the row behind me, a woman whispered, just loud enough to carry, "Did he honestly just say that? At her graduation?" Another voice, male this time, added dryly, "Classy move, Robert. Really classy." I swallowed hard, the lump in my throat feeling rough and painful. I turned my head slightly, away from the stage, away from my family, and forced my jaw to remain unclenched. I would not give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. Not here, not now. The speech continued, something about strong roots needing pruning, about investing in proven assets, cutting away liabilities. The words blurred into meaningless background noise. After what felt like an eternity, but was probably only a minute or two, I quietly stood up and walked out of the massive tent. I didn't run, I didn't look back. I just walked steadily, deliberately, like a man leaving a meeting that had simply run too long. Later, at the catered reception held under a sprawling white marquee on a nearby lawn, I attempted to locate my assigned seat. I found the elegantly lettered sign marking the Miller family and guests table. I circled it slowly, scanning the small, embossed place cards arranged around the floral centerpiece. Robert, Linda, Jessica, Aunt Miriam, Jessica's roommate, Chloe. No Mike, a young woman I vaguely recognized from childhood summers, now impeccably dressed, looked up from the adjacent table and blinked in surprise. "Oh, hi, Mike. We weren't sure you were coming. Your mom mentioned it was just going to be a small, intimate family gathering today." She offered a strained, awkward smile, something about wanting to keep the focus. Clear, you know? Clear as mud. Cruel seemed more accurate. Resting near Jessica's plate was a folded ivory card identical to the ones tucked into the gift bags. Curiosity, or maybe self-punishment, made me pick it up when no one was looking. I unfolded it. Inside, printed in elegant gold script, "Congratulations to our only daughter, Jessica. Your brilliance lights our way. With all our love, Mom and Dad." Only daughter. The words seemed to sear themselves onto my retinas. That was the precise moment something inside me didn't just shift. It fractured, cleanly, irrevocably. A woman in a bright floral dress, dripping with jewelry, brushed past me, her eyes flicking pointedly at my plain white guest badge. "Oh, you must be with the event staff," she commented, loud enough for the people nearby to overhear. "You're not wearing the family pin." I glanced down at my lapel again. Guest. Anonymous. Nameless. A ghost with a badge. I managed a small, tight smile, said nothing, plucked a glass of lukewarm Prosecco from a passing waiter's tray, and began walking steadily towards the back exit of the reception tent, melting back into the background noise they seemed so determined to confine me to. I didn't go straight home after escaping the reception. Instead, I walked aimlessly through the crowded Cambridge streets, past bustling cafes overflowing with celebrating families, past laughing graduates posing for photos, past a street vendor selling crimson Harvard balloons. The city felt vibrant, alive, utterly indifferent to the quiet implosion of my family ties. It wasn't until the setting sun painted the brick buildings in shades of orange and bruised purple that I finally boarded the T, the screech of the train wheels a welcome distraction as it carried me back towards my small, third-floor walk-up in Somerville. I climbed the familiar stairs slowly, the worn wood groaning under my weight. I kicked off my dress shoes just inside the door and stood for a moment in the sudden, heavy silence of my apartment. It felt different tonight, not comforting, but hollow. I tossed the graduation program onto the cluttered kitchen counter. It landed awkwardly, fluttering open to reveal that staged photo. Mom, Dad, Jessica, radiating success. The caption beneath reiterated their narrative. A proud moment for the Miller family. No mention of the son who wasn't deemed worthy of inclusion, erased again. Later that night, unable to settle, I found myself sitting on the worn rug in my living room, an old high school yearbook open across my lap. Jessica's, from a decade prior. A wave of bitter memory washed over me. Mom had explicitly told me not to attend that graduation either. "It's Jessica's day, Mike, not yours. Don't make it awkward." My eyes found the custom tribute page they'd purchased in the back. "To the daughter who never gave up. We are so proud of you, Jessica." The accompanying photo showed the three of them, Mom, Dad, Jessica, posed on our front porch on a sunny spring afternoon. I remembered that photo shoot clearly because I was in the original photograph, standing right beside Jessica, grinning awkwardly in an itchy sweater Mom had forced me into. I remember her snapping at me for slouching, but in this published yearbook version, I was gone, cropped out with digital precision. I traced the empty space where I should have been, the glossy paper cool beneath my fingertip. They hadn't just forgotten me over the years. They had actively, deliberately removed me. The next morning, I woke stiffly on the floor, the yearbook lying beside me like incriminating evidence. Dragging myself up, I went through the motions of getting ready for my job at a small housing nonprofit. Donor relations. Predictably, no one at work mentioned the graduation spectacle. The Millers were experts at maintaining a pristine public image, and I'd learned long ago not to air my family's dirty laundry in the office. Around 10 a.m., grabbing coffee, a junior analyst, Sarah, popped her head in. "Hey, Mike, saw pics online. Your sister's graduation looked amazing. That dress." I forced a neutral expression. "Yeah, Jessica always looks the part." I managed a tight smile. "I was there, actually, lurking in the shadows, as usual." Sarah laughed, oblivious. "Ha, you're always so mysterious." Mysterious, right. Back at my desk, a colleague who occasionally golfed with Dad gave a brief nod but asked nothing. Another woman, whose kids I'd babysat, suddenly found her purse fascinating as I passed. Not malice, just choosing sides, choosing ignorance. I stared at my blank computer screen. What kind of family invites you to a graduation just to publicly disown you? And what kind of son keeps showing up, clinging to that shred of hope? God, I hated that part of me still craved their approval. My gaze drifted to a box in my desk drawer. Old birthday cards vaguely addressed to our children. Foundation newsletters where my accomplishments were footnotes. One year's holiday card featured only Jessica. The excuse? A branding choice. It was never just one thing. It was a death by 1,000 cuts. Years of subtle dismissals, quiet exclusions, polite erasures. But when I slipped out of that reception tent, I hadn't left entirely empty-handed. I'd pocketed that folded ivory card, "To our only daughter, Jessica." It now rested in an old shoebox under my bed, alongside a growing collection of documents and emails they never intended me to see. That night, the grief finally subsided, replaced by a cold, quiet resolve. I wasn't going to cry anymore. I was going to dig. The rain began sometime after midnight, a soft, persistent tapping against the kitchen window. I sat hunched over my laptop, the blue light illuminating the darkened room. No more tears. Instead, I navigated the familiar labyrinth of the shared cloud drive, the one linked to the family foundation, the one they'd never bothered removing my access from. After all, I'd set it up for them years ago. Erasing people was their forte. Dealing with digital permissions was tedious. I sifted through folders, tax filings, donation records, board minutes, mostly mundane. Then a folder labeled Holdings Updated. Inside, a single PDF. Transfer authorization, Seaside property, final. My pulse quickened. I clicked it open. There it was, my full legal name, Michael David Miller, typed neatly above a signature line. The signature itself looked vaguely familiar, but fundamentally wrong. The M was too flat, the loop on the K too wide, the whole thing rushed, forced. It was a clumsy forgery, and it had been notarized. I zoomed in on the notary stamp. Megan Miller, my cousin. Of course. Loyal, compliant Megan. My stomach plummeted. I rummaged through my own files, pulling out an old lease agreement bearing my genuine signature. Side by side, the difference was glaring. Not even close. This wasn't just emotional cruelty. This was fraud. They hadn't just disowned me in a speech. They'd forged my signature to steal my inheritance. My share of the Cape Elizabeth beach house, the one place Dad had specifically earmarked for me in his original will drafts. The place whose porch railings bore the imprint of my teenage sweat. The same place they'd blithely allowed Jessica to host a massive 30th birthday party, telling me it was just a few close friends, while I wasn't even invited onto the property. I closed the laptop slowly, the click echoing in the stillness. Sleep was impossible now. Around 3 a.m. I finally called Aunt Brenda. Her voice was thick with sleep, then concern. "Mike? Honey, what's wrong?" "Aunt Brenda," my voice cracked despite my resolve, "I found a property transfer document for the Cape House. My name's on it, but it's not my signature." A long, heavy silence, then a whispered, "Oh, Mike, you saw it?" The question hit me harder than the forgery itself. "You knew? You knew about this?" "I didn't know what to do," she stammered, guilt and fear warring in her voice. "Linda just said it was routine paperwork, simplifying things for taxes, making things cleaner." I slid down the kitchen wall until I was sitting on the cold linoleum floor. "You knew they were taking my name off the deed?" "I wasn't sure. I thought maybe it was temporary. Maybe they'd explain. I don't know." Her voice trembled. "I'm so sorry, Mike. I should have said something, but you know Linda and Robert. He just does whatever Linda wants." That familiar refrain, "You know how your mother gets," like she was an unavoidable force of nature. "I'm tired of making excuses for them, Aunt Brenda," I said, my voice devoid of inflection now. "I know, baby," she whispered back. "I know you are." By the time gray dawn filtered through the window, the sharp edges of grief had solidified into cold determination. I brewed coffee, strong and black, and sat at my small dining table, surrounded by printouts, highlighters, and the hum of the laptop. This wasn't just about a beach house or a yearbook photo. It was the pattern, the systematic erasure whenever anything tangible was at stake. Family holidays I wasn't welcome at unless I agreed to play a background role. Trust fund discussions I was deliberately excluded from. And now, forged documents and stolen property. But they'd made a mistake. They assumed their quiet, polite methods of exclusion had finally broken me. They thought I'd just fade away. They underestimated my ability to eventually connect the dots they'd tried so hard to scatter. Now, they were going to remember exactly who Mike Miller was. Not because I was fighting for a place at their table anymore, but because I was about to dismantle the whole damn thing. Mid-morning found me fueled by caffeine and a simmering rage, digging deeper. The Cape Elizabeth forgery was bad, but my gut told me there was more. I started cross-referencing foundation disbursement records with property tax databases, tracing LLCs, following the faint digital breadcrumbs they'd carelessly left behind. Then I found it. Bar Harbor, Maine. Parcel ID 017426. The sprawling cedar-shingled house overlooking the ocean, Grandma Eleanor's legacy, held in the Miller Family Trust for all grandchildren. Status: sold. Buyer: Harlow Holdings, LLC. My blood ran cold. I clicked the buyer's details. Registered agent, a high-powered Boston attorney. The same one Jessica had proudly posted about meeting on LinkedIn just 6 weeks prior, announcing her new boutique investment firm. They hadn't just shuffled assets. They'd liquidated a core family legacy, likely without informing any beneficiary outside their tight circle, certainly not me or Aunt Brenda. That house, filled with memories of childhood summers, sanding railings, learning to skip stones with Dad, sold off to fund Jessica's ambition. Her website slogan flashed in my mind: legacy-minded investing inspired by family values. The hypocrisy was suffocating. Grandma Eleanor would have been appalled. I slammed the laptop shut, my hands trembling with a violation so profound it stole my breath. This wasn't grief. It was pure, cold fury. I needed air. I threw on a jacket and walked towards the local bookstore, hoping the rhythm of my steps would clear my head. But fate, or maybe just cosmic irony, intervened. "Mike?" The voice belonged to Mrs. Davis, Mom's church friend, queen of passive-aggressive casseroles. She beamed, holding a book on aging gracefully. "Mike, darling, heard Jessica's doing wonderfully. Expanding into luxury real estate, your mother said. Marvelous!" I forced a polite nod. "Funny," I said evenly. "I thought that Bar Harbor house was still in the family trust." Her smile flickered. Recognition. Panic. "Oh, well, I wouldn't know the specifics, dear. Parents these days, always making moves," she chirped, suddenly flustered. "Do they?" I asked, holding her gaze. She offered that saccharine smile again, the one demanding silence. I walked out. Back near my apartment, my phone buzzed. Text from an old college buddy. "Dude, heard your folks sold the big main house? Saw Jess's post. She's killing it. Kinda jealous." Jealous. The word tasted like acid. They envied the polished surface, oblivious to the rot beneath, the people erased to maintain the shine. This was systematic abandonment. I went inside, printed the documents, packed an overnight bag. Some answers weren't online. They were behind frosted glass doors. I knew exactly where to start. I parked across from the Miller Family Foundation headquarters, the tinted windows reflecting the gray sky like indifferent eyes. 15 years ago, I'd stood here, clutching a scholarship essay, told by Mom not to embarrass her. They gave the internship to Jessica's friend. Now, I pushed open the heavy glass door, bypassed the startled receptionist, and walked straight towards Linda Miller's corner office. She looked up from her computer, utterly unsurprised. "Mike," she said, voice like chilled glass, "to what do I owe the pleasure?" She gestured vaguely at the visitor's chair. I remained standing. The office was unchanged. Orchids, awards, the framed headline, "Linda Miller, Mother, Philanthropist, Visionary." "I regret you felt hurt by the graduation announcement," she began, the classic non-apology. "But Robert and I did what we felt was best for the family's image." "You don't regret the decision," I stated calmly, "just how it looked." She exhaled softly, annoyed. "You are still welcome at family events. Just, perhaps more as a guest. It's about presenting a cohesive narrative." "It's about control, Mom." Her lips tightened. "We can't have every branch growing off in different directions, Mike. It looks messy." "I hope people notice," I said quietly, "because I'm done contorting myself to fit your perfect picture." That evening, I attended the annual foundation gala. My RSVP predated the public disowning. My name tag, Mike R. Even Miller was too much. The ballroom buzzed with wealth and influence. I stayed near the walls, invisible. Midway through dinner, Dad raised his glass. "A toast to our only daughter, Jessica, whose brilliance guides this family forward." Heads swiveled towards me briefly. Pity, curiosity, then snapped away. Jessica blinked, maybe surprised, but didn't correct him. Her silence served her well. I didn't raise my glass. Inside, something shattered completely. This was exile, gift-wrapped. I slipped out before dessert. No one noticed. In the ride-share home, watching the city lights blur, I knew I wasn't waiting for apologies. They'd defined their legacy. Now it was my turn. The next morning, I didn't sleep in. Fueled by cold coffee, I sat at my kitchen island, laptop glowing, surrounded by scanned documents, financial ledgers, emails I was never meant to see. The trail of deception was subtle but undeniable. Real estate deals, rerouting inheritance, trust disbursements bypassing my account, marketing memos explicitly excluding me. I carefully placed the most damning evidence into that dark burgundy velvet envelope Mom had given me years ago with a note about writing with grace. This reply wouldn't have the grace she envisioned. By 10 a.m. I stood outside Walter Schmidt's downtown office, their family attorney. He greeted me with barely concealed panic. "Walter, 2 minutes," I said, handing him the envelope. Inside, affidavit on signature forgery, challenge to the trust administration, thumb drive with voice recordings, instructions included. He clutched it. "Expectations?" "No, Walter. Consequences." I turned and left. Back in my apartment, I felt strangely calm, more awake than I had in years. They thought I'd stopped listening, stopped reading everything. They were wrong. That night, I called David, my lawyer. "David, I don't want revenge, but I won't let my silence be consent. If they write me out, the record needs to show who held the pen." "Okay, Mike," he said. "It starts now." The following morning, my phone erupted. Before coffee, missed calls, exploding inbox. A reporter. I ignored them, opened my tablet, front page of a major nonprofit watchdog site. luxury charities' glossy image tarnished, anonymous sources question financial integrity at the prestigious Miller Foundation. My throat tightened. It was real. The article didn't name me, but it quoted documents, emails, memos I had provided to Walter. The foundation leadership would know exactly who leaked it. Their controlled narrative had shattered. By lunch, donors were withdrawing pledges. Galas were postponed. Online comments exploded. Someone leaked one audio clip. Mom dismissing me, Dad worrying about me seeing financials. Hearing my private erasure echoed online didn't sting, it felt validating. The PR firm emailed, asking for a quote for a unifying statement. I deleted it. That night, Mom hosted a family unity luncheon. 2 board members attended. Jessica was a no-show. The ship was sinking. I refreshed the watchdog site. A new photo. Mom leaving the foundation building, her signature gold lapel pin conspicuously absent. I sat alone in my apartment. I didn't have the pin. I didn't need it. I had the truth. The courtroom was mundane. Tired benches, buzzing lights, stale air. But for me, it felt monumental. David stood beside me, calm, folder ready. Across the aisle, Mom, stony-faced, Dad, staring at the floor, Jessica, scrolling on her phone, bored. The judge, weary but sharp, called the hearing. David presented the exhibits, financial records, forensic proof of forgery, Grandma Eleanor's original will, predating the version they used, naming me primary beneficiary for Bar Harbor. Jessica froze. Mom's head snapped towards me, furious. Dad stammered, "But that version, never final." The judge cut him off. "Was this document legally filed and notarized, counsel?" "Yes, Your Honor," David confirmed, "by the same legal team, later replaced by the family." David played the audio clip. Mom dismissing me, Dad worrying about my access. Silence descended. Then Mom leaped up, hissing, "You ungrateful boy! Trying to destroy us?" I stood slowly. "No, Mom. I waited so I wouldn't destroy myself." The judge ruled decisively. Bar Harbor reverted to me. Trust distributions frozen pending audit. Foundation finances referred to the Attorney General for review. Jessica bolted. Dad slumped. Mom stood rigid, her world imploding on public record. David whispered, "Okay, Mike?" I looked down at my empty lapel. They could keep their pin. I had my name. 6 months on, I stood barefoot in a bright room, a former library branch near Providence, now a literacy and arts center for foster teens I'd funded with the recovered inheritance. The opening was simple: folding chairs, cupcakes, kids sharing art. The plaque near the door read, "In memory of Eleanor Miller," for the grandchildren who felt erased. I traced the letters. This felt like the right legacy. I hadn't returned to the foundation. Bar Harbor became a writer's retreat for young women from foster care. I established a scholarship in Eleanor's name, quietly. My parents remained silent, buried in audits. The foundation suspended operations. Jessica sent a note. "You were right about everything, Mike. I'm sorry." 10 words. I filed it away with the old lapel pin. Markers, not anchors. A boy with a gap-toothed grin handed me a crooked paper badge. "This is for you, because you showed up for us." I knelt. "Wow, thank you. This is the best badge I've ever received." I pinned it on my jacket. It felt heavier, more real than gold. I sat in the back, listening to the kids read poetry. The silence felt full, peaceful, mine. Forgiveness wasn't about them. It was about releasing myself from hoping they'd change. Some wounds don't heal with words. They stop bleeding when you stop picking at them. Man, sometimes the deepest cuts come from family, right? But healing isn't going back. It's moving forward, building on your own terms. Ever had a moment where walking away was the most powerful choice? Share your story below. I read every single one. And if you connect with these messy, real stories, subscribe. More are coming. I sat there, watching a young girl tentatively approach the makeshift stage, clutching her poem, her knuckles white. My paper badge felt warm against my chest.